In Seoul, some marriages are built on love. Others are built on carefully constructed lies. Mine was both. For 3 years, I believed I knew the man I married. Damon Castellano, investment banker, art collector, the kind of husband who remembered anniversaries and never raised his voice. We lived in a penthouse overlooking the Han River, attended charity galas, vacationed in Monaco. I thought I was living a fairy tale. What I didn't know was that fairy tales can have teeth. And tonight, standing in our marble foyer with rain streaking the floor-to-ceiling windows behind me, I'm about to discover that the man I fell in love with doesn't exist. He never did. My name is Zara Mitchell Castellano, and until 6 hours ago, I thought I had it all figured out. I met Damon 4 years ago at an art gallery opening in Gangnam. I was 26, a curator specializing in contemporary African art, trying to build a career in a city where I was constantly the only black woman in the room. He was 32, effortlessly sophisticated in a way that made Tom Ford suits look casual. He approached me while I was studying a piece by Kehind Wiley. "The juxtaposition is interesting," he said in perfect English with just a hint of Italian accent. "Classical European composition, but the subject refuses to be invisible." I turned to look at him. Tall, dark hair swept back, gray eyes that seemed to see right through me. Not in a threatening way. In a way that made me feel seen. "That's the point," I replied. "Reclaiming the narrative. Rewriting who gets to be powerful in the frame." He smiled. "I like that. Rewriting the narrative." We talked for 3 hours. About art, about soul, about what it's like to be foreign in a country that values homogeneity. He never once made me feel like I had to prove I belonged in that space. A month later, he took me to dinner at a private restaurant where the chef knew his name. 2 months after that, we were exclusive. 6 months later, he proposed with a ring that cost more than my annual salary. "Marry me," he said simply, kneeling in our apartment with the city lights spread out behind him. "Let me spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt that you're exactly where you belong." I said yes. The wedding was small, elegant. His family flew in from Italy, his father, his 2 brothers, a handful of cousins. They were warm, welcoming, treated me like I was already part of the family. My parents came from Atlanta, overwhelmed by the luxury but happy to see me so clearly in love. Everything was perfect. What makes this moment unsettling is not what I saw. It's what I didn't see. The signs were always there. I just didn't know how to read them. Damon's schedule was unpredictable. Sometimes he'd be gone for days on business trips to Tokyo or Hong Kong. He'd return exhausted, distracted, unwilling to talk about work. "Banking is boring," he'd say, pulling me close. "I don't want to waste our time together discussing interest rates and portfolio management." I accepted it. Lots of executives travel. Lots of men don't like bringing work stress home. But there were other things. The way certain people treated him when we were out. A restaurant owner who refused to accept payment. A parking attendant who waved us through without asking for a ticket. Small moments of deference that seemed disproportionate to his position as an investment banker. "You must tip really well," I joked once. "I believe in taking care of people who take care of me," he replied. Which sounded reasonable at the time. Then there were the phone calls. Always in Italian, always in another room. I speak French and passable Korean, but my Italian was limited to restaurant menus. I never knew what he was discussing. "Family business," he'd explain. "My father's getting older. There's always something that needs handling." And I believed him. Because why wouldn't I? He was my husband. The man who brought me coffee in bed every morning. The man who donated to the gallery where I worked and never made me feel like I owed him anything for it. The man who looked at me like I was the most important thing in his world. How could someone like that be lying? The first real crack appeared 3 months ago. We were at a gallery opening, my gallery, actually. I'd curated an exhibition of emerging Korean African artists, a project I'd worked on for over a year. It was a big night for me professionally. Damon was charming as always, playing the supportive husband, introducing himself to visiting collectors, making sure I was the center of attention. Then a man approached us. Korean, maybe late 40s, expensive suit, flanked by 2 younger men who screamed private security. He walked straight up to Damon and said something in Korean that I didn't quite catch. But I caught Damon's response. His entire demeanor changed. The warm, approachable man I knew vanished, replaced by something colder. Harder. He responded in Korean, flawless Korean, which I didn't even know he spoke, and his voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Not angry. Authoritative. The man nodded, apologized, and left immediately. What was that about? I asked. Damon's warm smile returned like flipping a switch. Nothing important. Mistaken identity. He thought I was someone else. But I'd seen the other man's face. That wasn't mistaken identity. That was recognition. And something else. Fear. I let it go because the exhibition was important and I didn't want to create tension.
I don't care.
But the moment stayed with me.
If that footage gets
the
out,
way Damon had
you
shifted.
Are finished.
The way the other
me?
man had retreated.
Finished.
The way my
It has
husband
to
had
be done
become someone
tonight.
I didn't recognize
No
for exactly
witnesses.
30 seconds.
I don't care who is in the way.
Here's why this moment changes everything. Because tonight, I'm going to see that version of Damon again. And this time, I won't be able to look away. It starts with a phone call I'm not supposed to hear. I came home early from the gallery. One of our artists canceled a studio visit, and I decided to surprise Damon with dinner from his favorite Italian restaurant. He'd been stressed lately, more calls, more trips, more late nights in his home office with the door closed. I thought a quiet evening might help. When I walk into our penthouse, I hear his voice coming from the office. The door is slightly ajar, and he's speaking in Italian. Nothing unusual. Except his tone. I've never heard him sound like this. Cold. Clinical. Discussing something in a way that makes my skin prickle. I don't speak Italian fluently, but I know enough. And what I'm hearing includes words that don't belong in banking conversations. Territory. Shipment. Enforcement. I stand frozen in the hallway, shopping bag still in my hands, trying to convince myself I'm misunderstanding. Then he switches to English. Handle it quietly, he says. I don't want complications. And make sure the payment structure is clear. No one moves product through Busan without our approval. That's non-negotiable. Product. Territory. Approval. These aren't banking terms. My hands start shaking, and the shopping bag slips, hitting the marble floor with a sound that echoes through the apartment. The phone call stops immediately. Zara? His voice is back to normal. Warm. Concerned. You're home early. I pick up the bag with trembling hands. Yeah. Cancelled meeting. I brought dinner. He appears in the doorway, perfectly composed. Concerned. The husband I know. Everything okay? You look pale. This is where perception shifts. Because I have a choice in this moment. Pretend I didn't hear anything. Ask him directly. Or do what my instincts are screaming at me to do. Investigate. I'm fine, I lie. Just tired. Long day. Why don't you relax? I'll set up dinner. He takes the bags from me, kisses my forehead. Go change. I'll handle everything. I walk to our bedroom on autopilot. Close the door. and for the first time in 3 years of marriage, I wonder who I'm actually living with. I wait until he's in the shower. His phone is on the nightstand, and I know his passcode, our wedding anniversary. He's never hidden it from me, which suddenly feels significant. Either he trusts me completely, or he doesn't think I'm smart enough to find anything. The phone unlocks. My heart is pounding so hard I can barely breathe. His message app looks normal. Texts from his brothers, his father, business contacts. Nothing suspicious. But then I see a second messaging app. One I don't recognize. The icon is subtle, designed to blend in. I open it. The messages are coded, but not well enough. References to shipments and territories. Names I don't recognize. Amounts of money that make my gallery salary look like pocket change. And photos. Not explicit. Not violent. But clear enough. Warehouses. Shipping containers. Men in suits standing in positions of obvious authority. And Damon, in several of the photos, not as a participant but as someone everyone else is clearly deferring to. I'm looking at organizational hierarchy. And my husband is at the top. The shower turns off. I close the app, put the phone back exactly where it was, and sit on the edge of the bed trying to control my breathing. When he comes out, towel around his waist, hair wet, he looks at me with concern. "You sure you're okay?" "I'm sure," I say. "Just thinking about work." He sits beside me, and I can smell his cologne. The same scent I've loved for 3 years. The same man I've shared a bed with, shared my life with, shared everything with. Except he's not the same man. He never was. "Zara," he says softly. "If something's bothering you, you can tell me." The audacity of that statement almost makes me laugh. "I know," I say instead. "I'm just tired." He studies my face for a long moment, and I see something flicker in his expression. Suspicion? Concern? I can't tell anymore. "Okay," he finally says. "Let's have dinner. Then early to bed. We both need rest." We eat Italian food at our dining table overlooking the city, making small talk about my exhibition and his upcoming trip to Singapore. Normal conversation. Married conversation. All while I'm screaming internally. Because the man across from me, the man I built a life with, is apparently involved in organized crime at a level I'm only beginning to comprehend. And I have no idea what to do about it. I wait 3 days. 3 days of pretending everything is normal while I gather information. I access our banking records. Surprisingly, he's never hidden those from me either. I see patterns I didn't notice before. Payments to companies I can't trace. Investments in businesses that don't seem to exist. I call his office. I'm told Castellano Investments is a private firm that doesn't take meetings without referral. I do internet searches. Nothing about criminal activity, but very little about his legitimate business either. Damon Castellano exists online as a wealthy investor, philanthropist, art collector. But the details are vague. The portfolio is unclear. It's a carefully constructed facade. And I'm living inside it. On the 3rd night, I decide I can't keep pretending. He comes home from another meeting at 11 p.m. I'm waiting in the living room, lights off, just the city glow through the windows. "Zara?" He sounds concerned. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" I turn on one lamp. "We need to talk." He goes very still. "About what?" "About who you really are." The silence that follows is absolute. I watch his face carefully, and for the first time, I see him make a calculation. Deciding what to admit. What to deny. How much I actually know. "What brought this on?" he asks carefully. "I heard your phone call. 3 days ago. And I looked at your phone while you were in the shower. No point in lying. If I want truth, I have to give it first." He sits down across from me, and when he speaks, his voice is different. Not the warm husband voice. Something more controlled. What did you see? Enough to know that you're not an investment banker. At least not primarily. I keep my voice steady. Enough to know that the life we've been living is built on something you've been hiding from me since the day we met. Zara. Don't. I hold up my hand. Don't try to minimize this. Don't tell me it's complicated. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending I'm misunderstanding. He leans back, and for a long moment, he just looks at me. Assessing. Deciding. You're right, he finally says. I haven't been completely honest about my business. Your business. I laugh, but there's no humor in it. Is that what we're calling it? It's a family business. Has been for 3 generations. My grandfather started it in Naples. My father expanded it. My brothers and I run the international operations. And what exactly does this family business do? We manage networks. Facilitate transactions. Provide services that exist in spaces where traditional systems don't reach. The corporate euphemisms would be funny if I weren't so furious. You're involved in organized crime. I'm involved in business that operates outside conventional structures, he corrects. There's a difference. No, Damon. There really isn't. The real tension isn't physical, it's psychological. Because in this moment, I'm realizing that everything I thought I knew was a performance. The art gallery meeting. The courtship. The marriage. All of it choreographed by someone who understood exactly how to make me fall in love with a version of him that doesn't exist. Did you ever love me? I ask. Or was I just useful somehow? His face changes then. Real emotion breaking through the careful control. Don't, he says roughly. Don't question that. Everything else you can doubt, but not that. How can I believe anything you say? You've lied about who you are since the moment we met. I never lied about my feelings for you. He leans forward, intense. I lied about my work. I lied about my family's business. But what I felt, what I feel, that's the one thing that's been real from the beginning. That's supposed to make this okay? No. Nothing makes this okay. He runs his hand through his hair, and for the first time, he looks genuinely distressed. But you need to understand something. The world I come from, the business I'm in, it doesn't allow for the kind of vulnerability that loving someone creates. So yes, I kept it separate. I built a life with you that was removed from all of that because I needed something real. Something that wasn't about power or control or networks. You don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to be a crime boss and a loving husband. Why not? His voice is quiet. Because it makes you uncomfortable? Because it doesn't fit the narrative you want? The question hangs in the air. What makes this figure fascinating is the complexity. Because sitting across from me isn't a monster. It's not the villain from a movie or the caricature from a crime drama. It's a man I know. A man who brings me coffee every morning. A man who remembered my mother's birthday and sent flowers without being asked. A man who supported my career and never made me feel like his money meant he owned me. That person exists. And apparently, so does the person who runs criminal networks across 3 continents. Both are real. Both are him. And I have to decide what I'm going to do about it. Here's what's going to happen, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. You're going to tell me everything. Not euphemisms. Not corporate doublespeak. The truth. And then I'm going to decide whether I can live with knowing it. And if you can't? Then I walk away. With a divorce settlement generous enough that you never have to wonder if I'll talk to anyone about what I know. It's a calculated threat. Because I understand now that in his world, information is currency. And I'm holding information that could damage him. He studies me for a long moment. Then nods. Okay. Ask me anything. We talk until sunrise. He tells me about growing up in a family where business and legacy were intertwined with things that couldn't be discussed openly. About taking over operations in Asia 5 years ago. About how the art world, the charity galas, the social connections, all of it serves a dual purpose. Legitimacy and access. He tells me about the decision to marry. How he'd convinced himself he could keep the two lives separate. How meeting me had been unplanned but falling for me had been real. I knew the moment I saw you looking at that painting, he says. You understood about rewriting narratives. About refusing to be invisible. And I thought, maybe with her, I can have something that's just mine. Something that isn't about the family or the business or the expectations. But it doesn't work that way, I say quietly. Your business touches everything. Including me. I know. He looks exhausted. I know, and I'm sorry. I should have told you from the beginning. Given you the choice with full information. Why didn't you? Because I was afraid you'd say no. Simple. Honest. And I wanted you too much to risk it. The confession sits between us, heavy with implication. 3 weeks pass. I don't leave immediately. I need time to process. To understand what my options actually are. Damon gives me space, but I can feel his tension. Waiting for me to make a decision that will determine both our futures. I think about everything I've learned. Not just about his business, but about power structures and soul, about how legitimacy and influence operate in spaces most people never see. I think about my gallery work, and how much easier it's been with Damon's connections. The doors that opened. The collectors who took meetings. The funding that appeared. I'd thought it was my talent. And maybe it was. But it was also his influence, working behind the scenes. I think about love and betrayal and whether they can coexist. And I think about the woman I am versus the woman I want to be. In the end, I make my decision based on one question: can I live with knowing the truth? The answer surprises me. Yes. Not because I condone his business. Not because I've suddenly become comfortable with organized crime. But because I understand something I didn't before. Power exists whether we acknowledge it or not. Influence operates in the shadows whether we're aware of it or not. And the choice isn't between perfect morality and corruption. It's between conscious engagement and willful ignorance. I find Damon in his office late one evening. I'm staying, I tell him. He looks up, surprise and relief fighting for dominance in his expression. You are? On conditions. Name them. First, no more lies. If I ask a question, you answer honestly or you tell me it's something you can't discuss. But no more evasion. Agreed. Second, I want to understand your business properly. Not the operations, I don't need to know details. But the structure. The network. How it actually works. I won't be the naive wife who doesn't ask questions. He nods slowly. That's reasonable. Third. I sit across from him. I'm not becoming involved in your business. But I'm also not going to pretend it doesn't exist. If there are situations where my connections or my work can provide legitimacy for you, I need to know. I need to consent. I won't be used without awareness. Zara. I mean it, Damon. If we're doing this, we're doing it as actual partners. Which means you respect my intelligence enough to be honest about when our worlds overlap. He's quiet for a long moment. Then, you've thought about this carefully. I've thought about nothing else for 3 weeks. Why are you staying? It's the question I've been asking myself. And the answer is complicated. Because despite everything, what you said was true. This thing between us, it's real. I can feel the difference between performance and genuine emotion. And what you feel for me is genuine. I lean forward. But also because I'm tired of pretending power doesn't exist. I've spent my whole life navigating spaces where I was supposed to be invisible. Spaces where influence operated behind the scenes and I was expected to just accept it without understanding it. And now? Now I'd rather understand how power actually works than pretend it doesn't affect me. I'd rather be conscious of the game than a piece that doesn't know it's being moved. Something shifts in his expression. Respect. Understanding. Maybe even admiration. "You're not what I expected," he says quietly. "Neither are you." I smile without humor. But here we are. The thing about knowing the truth is that it changes everything and nothing simultaneously. Damon is still my husband. We still have dinner together, still sleep in the same bed, still build a life that looks normal from the outside. But now I see the patterns. The real reasons behind social connections. The actual purpose of certain business trips. The careful choreography of legitimate business and shadow operations. And I've found my own space within it. My gallery work has evolved. I'm still curating art, still supporting emerging artists. But I'm also more conscious of how cultural capital intersects with other forms of power. How art world connections create access. How philanthropy builds reputation. I'm not participating in anything illegal. But I'm no longer pretending that my world and Damon's world are separate. They never were. The marriage has changed too. There's a different kind of honesty now. Not comfortable, exactly. But real. Do you regret it? Damon asks me one evening as we watch the rain from our penthouse windows. Knowing the truth? I think about the question carefully. I regret that you didn't trust me with it from the beginning, I say. I regret that I had to discover it rather than you choosing to tell me. And the truth itself? The truth is just information. What matters is what I choose to do with it. He pulls me closer. And what are you choosing? I'm choosing to stay. To build something real within the complexity. To be a partner who understands the full picture rather than a wife who lives in comfortable ignorance. That's not an easy choice. No, I agree. But it's mine. And maybe that's the real story here. Not about discovering my husband was a mafia boss. Not about the betrayal or the lies or the dangerous world I didn't know existed. It's about choosing consciousness over ignorance. Agency over victimhood. Partnership over pretense. I didn't know my husband was a mafia monster until that night. But what I discovered was more complicated than any label. He's a man who operates in shadows but loves in light. Who built a criminal empire but wanted a normal marriage. Who lied about everything except his feelings. And I'm a woman who chose to stay not because I condone his choices, but because I'd rather understand power than pretend it doesn't exist. We're building something unconventional. Something that doesn't fit easy narratives about right and wrong, love and betrayal, innocence and corruption. We're building a partnership based on truth, however uncomfortable that truth might be. And in a city like Seoul, where power operates behind elegant facades and influence moves through invisible networks, maybe that's the most honest thing two people can do. Know the truth. Accept the complexity. And choose each other anyway. Rate this script for virality in Fuss Love Stories.